We have been led to believe that evolution is some process that's going on outside in the world, and it's not really up to us. We're just following it along. But it turns out this is really very untrue and very damaging in the current situation, because we now recognize that evolution is not based on genes, it's based on consciousness. And that as we go from one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness, the organisms and animals and plants evolve on this planet. So the significance right now is to recognize that the evolution we're facing is not a genetic evolution. The human body is not going to change its structure. Look, the cockroach has been here for 300 million years. They're still the same cockroaches, but what's happening with humans? Well, we're evolving, but now we're recognizing evolution isn't a physical evolution, it's a consciousness evolution. And in that regard, then each of us and our thoughts and our consciousness and our mind are participants in the evolution that's unfolding. It's not that you're going to wait in your house one day, open up the door and say, look, evolution just occurred. No, it's because we have to go out and we are the elements of evolution. We are enhancing our consciousness, and then through that process, enhancing the survival and thrival of humans on this planet. If you look at the nature of how the universe is created, a physical structure in space, we recognize that there's a geometry, a math that determines how structure does fit into space. Well, the math of our universe, the geometry, is not the same one we learned in school with the triangles, cubes, spheres. That was Euclidean geometry. It creates our houses, our technology, and the world that man is manifesting. But that geometry doesn't represent nature. Nature is driven by a completely different geometry called fractal geometry. The most important point of fractal geometry is there's a fundamental pattern that is created at every level of organization in the universe. A pattern from atoms, a pattern of molecules, a pattern of cells, a pattern of people and humanity. There are patterns that carry through that shape every level of this. So an interesting part of fractal geometry is you could look at one level and make an insight about what's happening at another level. In this regard, I'd like to talk about the difference between regular chemistry and noble gases. If you look at the periodic table of the elements, you can see almost all the elements are making chemistry. But there's one column on the very right side of the periodic table called the noble gases. Helium, argon, krypton, xenon, gases such as these. They go, well, what's significant about this one column? And I say, they don't make chemistry. I go, what do you mean they don't make chemistry? I said, well, what makes chemistry? All of the other elements are like atoms that spin like nano tornadoes. But when an atom doesn't have a balance of its electrical charges, the electrons running around like satellites, if there's no balance in that last layer of the electron satellites, the atom begins to wobble. And wobble is actually a loss of energy. So atoms that wobble look for an opportunity to stabilize. I say, what do? I say, atoms that wobble look for other atoms that wobble, but wobble in a complementary form so that two wobbles can come together and create a perfect spin balance. Significance of this is in our human relationships, our psychology, that if it's not in harmony, makes us wobble. And if we wobble because of the programming that we have, what we're going to look for is another person who is complementary to that program, bringing them together, making satisfaction. A sadomasochism, as weird as it is what? A person looking to hurt someone and a person looking to receive hurt. And I go, well, that's called a codependent relationship. And I go, well, poor atoms in the noble gas range. I say, what do you mean? I say, well, they don't form relationships. I go, wait a minute. Lasers, the beautiful lasers, the light that is so pure you can affect your heart and your physiology when you see a laser. I say, where does laser light come from? I go, laser light comes from noble gases coming together. And I say, what are noble gases? Atoms that don't wobble. Their outer electron shells are in balance. They spin in a perfect balance. While all the other atoms on the periodic table are wobbling, noble gases spin in perfect balance, and nothing can throw them off. Other wobbly atoms don't throw off a noble gas. People who are in a understanding of life and harmony and fulfillment are like noble gases. They see the world in a really, really balanced way. And then these noble gases can spin by themselves irregardless if there are other people out there in their relationships or not. They spin balanced. However, it turns out when noble gases get enlightened, and I mean, what is that? I say when a photon of light hits a noble gas, it excites the noble gas to hook up with another noble gas. Now, when two atoms come together, we call that a dimer. Interesting point is that in noble gases, when two noble gases come together, the term is excitomer. And I said, what is that relevant to? I say, when the noble gases come together and couple, they give off laser light. And I say, well, this is an understanding in our civilization. Most people are out of balance, looking for somebody that will balance them. That's called a codependent relationship. The real relationships come from people who are in balance and are in balance and are very happy in their own balance and can be happy with somebody else in their own balance. And that's when people as noble gases who are living in harmony can come together. And then they're not just dimers, folks, they're excitomers. Those people that are noble gases come together give off light that will help the other atoms around them understand the nature of harmony and balance. If you're watching the news or surfing the web, you can see the world is in a state of disrepair. Chaos is happening everywhere. This is really psychologically depressing for a lot of people because they see the world that they're familiar with collapsing in front of their own eyes. And this makes fear, and fear makes disempowerment, and fear makes people victims. And that's what everyone feels. They are victims of a world out of control. The fact is, this is not true at all. In fact, the chaos is perhaps one of the most important events necessary for us to evolve for a very simple reason. The culture we have created on today's foundation is the culture that is destroying the ecosystem, which is destroying us. So the important next step is to recognize we don't have to destroy the planet. We can go back to the indigenous ways, support the planet, and in the process create something new. But the simple fact is this: you cannot build the future on the foundation of today's culture because that's where the problem comes from. So when you're seeing the world fall down, look at it this way. This is a positive sign. Why? Because we need to build a new civilization on a different foundation. And so one coming down enables us to look forward to the one we are building right now, the new civilization that is arising in front of us.